Let me just say first, as the provocateur of this event, what a pleasure it is to see people face to face and live in person. And also, I'd like to express my appreciation to Tom Solowski and the festival and the Drake for giving us this environment within which to relax and think. This is the kind of environment I'd like for my classroom. McLuhan and Speed in the Age of Digital Reproduction. By most accounts, what Marx called capitalism's annihilation of space by time was given further impetus during the last decades of the 20th century by developments in ultra-rapid communication, satellite and cable networks, personal computing, and the internet. Towards the end of the 1990s, in response to these changes, speed writing and theories proliferated. In this discourse on speed, there seems to be considerable agreement that our contemporary culture has become accelerated, that globalization is a race, that we live in a fast world under the tyranny of the moment. By these accounts, we have entered a new era of global media space-time with dramatic consequences for our understanding of space and place and our perception and experience of time. But if we want to take the time to understand changing media technologies and networks and the fabrication of speed as a defining feature of contemporary economy and culture, returning to the work of McLuhan is a good starting, if not endpoint. Quote, "To high-speed change," McLuhan wrote in 1960, "no adjustment is possible. We become spectators only and must escape into understanding." If, as Miller and Schwartz have put it in Speed, Visions of an Accelerated Age, the 20th century is without a doubt, the century of speed, McLuhan felt its effects, and he tried to describe them. His use of speed as a key concept predates the speed theories of the 1990s. McLuhan's late modern writing also prefigures the invention of dromology, Paul Virilio's hypermodern political economy of speed. Virilio himself has said that few writers have touched on speed. Quote, "For a more political vision of speed, there's Marinetti, the Italian futurists, and then Marshall McLuhan, who took a step in that direction." In a 1980 article from Maclean's magazine, published slightly less than a year before his death, titled "Living at the Speed of Light," McLuhan begins, quote, "In the 80s, there is a general awareness that the technology game is out of control and that perhaps man was not intended to live at the speed of light. Excessive speed of change," he continues, "isolates already fragmented individuals, and the accelerated process of adaptation takes too much vitality out of communities." McLuhan's uncut version of this same article includes this scene. "As ecology takes over in all fields of human activity in the 80s, every kind of change proposes a pollution threat. At the speed of light, everything affects everything. Living at the speed of light, we feel ourselves equally vulnerable and insecure." Filled then with disappointment about computers, the published version predicts that, quote, "the 80s in the West will witness an increase in the conservative backlash against runaway technology and change. Amid runaway networked computer technology and real-time data transmission, speed of light man has neither goals, objectives, nor private identity. He's an item in the data bank, software only, easily forgotten, and deeply resentful." This indicates that, near the end of his life, McLuhan no longer believed that information flows at electric speed were synonymous with enlightenment or mythic consciousness. He was much more concerned about the side effects of rapid communication and living the fast life. McLuhan began to offer, I want to argue, a critique of media that probed, among other social and psychic consequences, the shift from the experience of time to the experience of speed. Simultaneity, instantaneity, and the uncertainty and unpredictability of living in the global present were among his concerns from early on. Against the tradition of U.S. media effects research, he defined the message of any medium as the, quote, "change of scale or pace or pattern that it introduces into human affairs." The tendency towards total acceleration becomes a minor theme for the late McLuhan. At the time of the publication of his first book, The Mechanical Bride, in 1951, McLuhan was already aware that mid-20th century media culture was a, quote, "whirling phantasmagoria that can be grasped only when arrested for contemplation." However, McLuhan did not make Poe's notion of relative velocities a part of his method of media study until he undertook his examination of the cultural effects of print and electronic media in the Gutenberg Galaxy, published in 1962. At the time of Understanding Media in 1964, McLuhan had added the concept of electric speed. Rereading these well-known works, as well as his lesser-known ones, we can see his shift from amusement to anxiety. We can trace how he developed speed as a concept for media and cultural analysis. In the Gutenberg Galaxy, McLuhan compares the relative velocity of some old media with some new electric ones. Quote, "As long as our technologies were slow as the wheel or the alphabet or money," he writes, "the fact that they were separate closed systems were socially and psychically supportable. This is not true now when sight and sound and movement are simultaneous and global in extent." His mosaic or field approach to the Gutenberg Galaxy and the new electronic media galaxy contrasts the relative velocities of media and their impact on thought and experience. For McLuhan, print thus represents, among other things, a speeding up of scribal culture and of the arts and sciences. The electric media represent a speeding up of typographic culture. It is the velocity of media that determines the possible forms of self-consciousness or identity. Print media fostered individualism and nationalism, while the immediacy of electromagnetic media fosters retribalization on a world scale and disembodied existence. By the time of Understanding Media, McLuhan believed the electronic age was reprocessing the mechanical age, with young people growing up in an electrically configured world, a world not of wheels, but of circuits. He thought that the increased range and rapidity of information flow requires a new approach to media study, one that not only relies on classification, analysis, or criticism of media content. Understanding Media offers a framework for understanding media as environments, the total configuration of technology, art, culture, human faculties, and social relations. In this approach to media ecology, electric speed becomes a key concept. We can follow the contours of McLuhan's thoughts on electric speed more closely by beginning with his notion that without increases of power in speed, technologies as extensions of ourselves would not occur or would be discarded. This implies that differences in speed are the key to understanding the social utility or political consequences of technological change. On the positive side, new perspectives may be enabled by speed. Quote, "Electric speed in bringing all social and political functions together in a sudden implosion has heightened human awareness of responsibility to an intense degree. The world's space may appear to contract or collapse, but in the global space of real-time information flows, a planetary ecological perspective on human history might emerge. The dynamism unleashed by electric speed tends," McLuhan wrote, "to, quote, abolish time and space in human awareness." Or to quote from The Medium is the Massage, "Time has ceased, space has vanished. We now live in a global village, a simultaneous happening." McLuhan was not the first nor the last to make such absolute claims about the end of distance and the death of geography. More plausible is his claim that mechanical speed-up created center margin structures, while electric speed dissolves this structure by creating centers everywhere. Here, speed is an agent of decentralization, but it is abstracted from relations of agency and from geo and political economy. For instance, the early history of computer networks is one of centralized control by the U.S. military and business. We might say that they were not decentralized until the 1980s, when personal computers were connected via telephone lines. But to be more precise, the Internet is a distributed network. And if we were to glance at a map of the global Internet networks today, we would see that geo-economic peripheries are not centered by distributed networks. Still, based on the idea that differences in speed are one of the keys to understanding media, we might observe that not all connections in the neo-network era share the same speed, and not all uses of the Internet are growing at the same speed. In the early 60s, McLuhan was concerned that speed-up, quote, "accentuates problems of form and structure. The older arrangements had not been made with a view to such speeds, and people began to sense a draining away of life values as they try to make the old physical